What's up everyone, Darcblade here bringing you my video review for Tomb Raider. Developed by Crystal Dynamics and published by Square Enix, this Tomb Raider game is a reboot, a reimagining that emphasizes the origins of Lara Croft. It's basically a prequel telling us all about the backstory about how she became a hardened survivor and fighter. Tomb Raider was released on the 5th of March 2013 for the PS3, Xbox 360 and PC. Now like I said, this game is a prequel, so it's the first in the continuity when it comes to putting all the Tomb Raider games together. So a lot of the events that have transpired in the other Tomb Raider games will not have a presence in this one. Now the storyline behind Tomb Raider is that Lara is off to make her mark on the archaeology world by discovering the lost kingdom of Yamatai in the Dragon's Triangle. Lara, along with work colleagues and friends, set off on the ship Endurance, commanded by Conrad Roth. The ship is struck by a violent storm though during its travel in the South Pacific. The ship splits in two and the survivors are shipwrecked on a mysterious island. During the first act of the game, Lara is separated from the other survivors and has to put into practice basic survival techniques. It's clear from dialogue with other survivors that she is not a complete novice when it comes to certain survival techniques, as it seems that Roth and her father have taught her basic skills such as mountain climbing and so on. As the game progresses, Lara and the other survivors realise that they're not the only inhabitants of the island. There's this weird cult who worship the Sun Queen, who can apparently control the weather. The cult takes great interest in the survivors and want to capture them. Lara and the other survivors must fend for their lives and try to escape. However, it's easier said than done because the cultists, the wildlife, even the weather seem intent on keeping Lara and the other survivors on the island. As the story progresses, Lara becomes stronger. She becomes a survivor, able to take on and fight almost any opponents in order to keep herself alive. She also struggles to try to keep the other survivors from falling into the cultists' hands. Eventually though, especially around the third act, Lara does learn that behind every myth there is some truth, and the game develops some supernatural elements to it. Overall though, I enjoyed the story. I don't think it was the greatest out there, but it was good enough for me to want to play through to the end. I loved all the Japanese historical facts that Lara spouted out during her travels around the island. Her fellow crewmates and survivors were okay characters, some of them were better than the others. I feel that there wasn't enough character development with these. I feel that if there was a bit more time spent on these characters interacting with Lara, then I feel we would have cared about these characters a little bit more. I really do feel that the character development with Lara though was very good, especially in the cutscenes more than the actual gameplay. During story cutscenes you can see Lara's emotion just through her body language. You can see the sadness in her facial expression when she has to kill a deer, or when she's forced to kill a human. These parts are great in the story cutscenes, however, like I just mentioned, in the actual gameplay it doesn't translate as well. You don't see the emotion that Lara can give off when she accidentally kills someone or when she's forced to kill an animal. I do feel that the start of the game was better than the end. At the end it felt more like an action game, whilst at the start it felt a bit more like a survival game, but I guess the gameplay has to change to reflect what's actually going on in the story. By the time I got to the end of Tomb Raider, I was satisfied with the ending. It wasn't the greatest ever, but it wasn't the worst. As Tomb Raider is an action-adventure game, the gameplay is what we come to expect of this genre. Lara moves around smoothly enough, she jumps, climbs, traverses the terrain with ease. Of course there are added elements that you would expect to find in a Tomb Raider game. For example, Lara has a climbing axe that allows her to climb vertical surfaces a lot more easier. She also comes with a rope she can attach to her arrows to create rope bridges. She will also use a makeshift torch to illuminate dark spaces. She'll come with an arsenal of varied weapons as well, each capable of solving puzzles as well as bringing down opponents. Now the game feels a bit like an open world game, but it's not at the same time. It does feel linear, although you can travel back to places you've been before in order to unlock secrets or get collectibles. Tomb Raider also has elements of a role-playing game as well. It has a character progression system as well as skill upgrades, side quests, and a crafting system that you can edit your weapons with. All of these aspects can be done from the base camp. This is basically a fire where Lara will sit down to rest. Here, like I said, you can edit your stats, upgrade your weapons, fast travel, so on and so forth. The actual island is quite big. If you look at the map, there are a lot of areas, and if you want to explore all of them, then you're going to be spending a lot of time going around the island. The combat in Tomb Raider is a mix of stealth combat and head-on, guns blazing combat. It's all done in a third-person perspective, so anyone who's played games such as the Uncharted series, Gears of War, will know what to expect. The weapons are a mixed bag, to be honest. I personally love the bow. I really do like how this weapon works in this game. I used it for the majority of the time, but when the bow wasn't strong enough, I would switch to the shotgun. The assault rifle was fair enough, and the pistol was a bit so-so in some situations, but at the end of the day they all do an adequate job of dispatching enemies. There is a little bit of light melee, but it's nothing to write home about. It's probably one of the weaker aspects of the combat, to be honest. It does have some stealth kills as well, but you rarely use these because, to be honest, it's easier to take people out with a bow. One of the biggest downsides of the gameplay for me was the quick time events and the situations where you could die easily by simply not knowing what was ahead of you. These situations grated on me a little bit, and I feel it was more trial and error rather than actually skill in trying to get past these areas. Apart from these downsides though, I did enjoy what Tomb Raider had to offer in terms of gameplay. Now, Tomb Raider came with a multiplayer, the first for the series. This is pretty much what we come to expect of third-person shooter multiplayer games. Gears of War, Uncharted 3, Tomb Raider bears a great similarity to these games. It comes with various game modes. It also comes with a very substantial progression system as well, where you're able to level up your characters, purchase new characters and items, edit your loadout, so on and so forth. The Tomb Raider multiplayer is basically all about the combat. It doesn't really borrow any other aspect from the Tomb Raider single player. There are minimal areas you can climb or set traps, but apart from that, it's clearly combat focused. Now, is the Tomb Raider multiplayer any good? Well, it's okay. I haven't played a ton of it. I've only played it briefly in that, and from what I've experienced, it was adequate enough. If you can really get into Tomb Raider's multiplayer, then there's a ton of stuff to do, and I'm sure you'll spend a lot of hours in the multiplayer. Now for me, the best aspect of Tomb Raider are the graphics and sound design. The landscapes look beautiful, the character models, especially on Lara, are well designed. There are a few down points. For example, I say Lara's character model is great, but her ponytail is not the greatest, shall we say. Also, a few models of the cultists don't look that good. But these are just spots on an otherwise beautiful game. The sound design is adequate, the voice acting is okay, it's above par to be honest, but it's not the greatest. Sound effects are fantastic, bow shots, gunshots, thunder crashing in the background, sounds great. Music accompanies to whatever is being played out on scene. For example, if there's an action scene, action music will strike up. If there's an emotional scene, the music will get a bit somber. The music is all relevant, and it really does help set the tone for the game. Overall, I thought Tomb Raider was a good game, but not a great game. It has so many things that are simply adequate, but they don't necessarily stand out from the crowd of other third-person action-adventure games out there. Sometimes Tomb Raider does feel very similar to a certain other action-adventure game out there. I mean, I'm just going to come out and say it, and say that this Tomb Raider does feel a lot like the Uncharted series, except I feel it lacks the charm and humour that the Uncharted series has that puts it apart from the Tomb Raider game, I feel. There were other aspects of the Tomb Raider game that grated on me a little bit. For example, I thought there were too many set pieces, so to say. For example, Lara seems to always be falling over. You could even make a drinking game out of how many times she falls over. Take a shot every time she falls over, and I'm sure you'll be drunk by the end of the game. Overall though, none of this tarnished my experience of the game. I still enjoyed myself. I feel it was worth the money. Whether or not you feel it is another matter. I'm just giving you my honest opinion of what I thought of Tomb Raider. The game took me around 12 to 15 hours to complete. It wasn't the longest game ever, but I didn't do everything either. If I went back and tried to get 100% on everything, then I'm sure it would rack up into the 20 hours. Also, if you include the multiplayer, you could easily spend 30 plus hours. So anyway, if you're looking for a nice action adventure game, or you're simply wanting to see how Lara became the Tomb Raider she is, then pick up Tomb Raider. And until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you my video review for Tomb Raider.